Welcome to my brief TED Talk on leading large groups in EVE. Now, this applies to both EVE Online or EVE Echoes, maybe even some of those other Sandbox MMO style games out there. Now, I don't personally have experience as a CEO, nor do I have experience at the Alliance level as, say, an executor. However, I have been a director. I have managed a large group of around 4,500 players in a role-playing game. And I tend to consume a lot of content about this game, so these are my brief thoughts on how to be successful. One of the most important keys to leading people is to be prepared to be honest and transparent. Nothing really resonates with people quite as much as an open person, one who's honest, one who they know they can trust. The minute that you've dented the trust in a relationship is the beginning of a fail cascade. You have to be prepared to share some really difficult details with your membership. Occasionally, you're going to have to admit that you're going to lose. You're going to go bankrupt, and you have to be prepared to ask those people to help. It's really common to want to hide information in this game because spies are so prevalent. But if you hide everything, you're going to wind up sowing distrust, you're going to wind up making people feel like they're left out, and you're going to wind up forcing people to leave your group. So you, as the leader of the group, have to know your leadership style. You have to know where you're going to be able to contribute, and you have to know how to trust and empower others to fill those gaps. Ultimately, your goal as a CEO or executor should be to be an idea person and a great organizer of things and people. If you are an active doer in your group, it most likely should be just as a break or something for fun for you. But if you are the key person in any major project, that project is likely to fail as you become buried in the other day-to-day space work that is required. You need to build effective departments like HR, finance, content creation, morale management. There are a dozen others that you could build. Fill them with directors who are excellent project managers who can take an idea, form a small group of people, and execute on it. And when you find talented people, whether they be graphic artists, whether they be HR people who handle incidents well, make absolute sure that you praise them, reward them when you can, and make them see the value that they have to your organization. Without content, your group will become bored or worse, start to form small cliques, and those cliques won't rely on any of the other players in your organization. And player interaction is absolutely a key in maintaining that fun per hour ratio that Brave always likes to talk about in EVE Online. Content can come in the form of wars. We should definitely limit these where you can, but don't be afraid to engage in them. They tend to create the most player buzz. You need to be able to have group PvE or mining events where players can get to feel like they've put their ships and their skills to use for the good of the alliance or corporation. And sometimes you just need to unwind and have a for fun event, whether this be a troll roam in shuttles or a Thrasher Fortnite style Eye of the Storm event to the death. These types of things need to have leadership attending because players want to see their leaders on the field. They want to see that those people that are leading them are right there by their side. But you have to manage and prevent burnout. Burnout is one of the number one causes of players taking a break from the game. They wind up in a position, they wind up excelling in a position, and then they wind up overworking in that position to where after a few short months or even years, they wind up thinking that this has all been just one treadmill day after another, where they now have a second real full-time job. Same thing with your line members. You need to watch for burnout there. Yes, we love to get involved in wars, but when you start implying that players mandatorily must attend call to arms 7 days a week, you have started the death of your organization. Words are really important when you're announcing these things. You really have to watch implying mandatory, how often you imply it, and how guilty you make people feel for not attending. Realistically, you probably want to keep it to where you could handle these activities like a CTA or a QRF with maybe 10 to 25% of your members online, because that's about as many as you're likely to pull. Most players do like to take breaks. Most players like to play for themselves the majority of their time. Those who don't are absolutely rare individuals. You also need to watch for burnout, especially in your FCs. We tend to need these people. They are the ones who lead creation of content, at least especially PvP content. And it's very easy to ask an FC to lead 3 or 4 roams a week, but how has that realistically impacted that FC? Have these check-in points, have discussions with them, make sure that no one's feeling overworked. One of my favorite topics when it comes to leading an organization is morale. I tend to think that the morale of the people is what makes or breaks a group, and it's something that I think far too many people overlook. You can have something as simple as some made memes occasionally. This gives members a brief 10-15 minute chuckle maybe. They can discuss it for a little bit. You can give absolutely rousing and inspiring speeches where people want to throw their ships at the enemy just because you said nice words. But ultimately, your goal has to be to create a sense of pride in the community that they're involved in, that players feel like they want to do the things you need them to do. Propaganda can come in a million different forms. You can have memes, posters, music, speeches, and even the occasional Reddit propaganda post. Goonswarm's probably one of the most hated EVE Online groups of all time, but their simple logo of a bee that can be photoshopped a million different ways, whether he's got a helmet and a gun, whether he is riding in a ship, that logo has rallied people to come back from year-long breaks just to fight in a war because they said Gundor needed them. And these simple little things just create player engagement that keep people coming back over and over again to your organization. The toughest part of being in leadership is being prepared to admit that you made a mistake. I think all too often leaders believe that they should be seen as infallible, but you have to be prepared to admit that you made the wrong call. You have to be prepared to admit that, you were given intelligence and decided to act against it, and that caused an entire fleet to wipe or an entire project to fall apart. These admissions should probably be pretty public. As I mentioned before, members want to feel like they have a connection. Members want to feel like they're in a transparent group, and members want to feel like their feelings are acknowledged. And one of the best ways to do so is openly admit when you've made a mistake. And of course, unfortunately, the big monster in the closet of Eve is ISK matters. No goal that you have in game can be accomplished without it. Wars are won and lost on who can provide SRP. Groups are built and destroyed based on who can keep up with structure needs. And you always need to be ahead of the game to where whatever comes next, whether it be new tier 4 structures or titans, that you are ready to start building those things to not fall behind. Pantheon admitted that they were going to build 100 capital ships, and the reaction of the community was to immediately go to war with Pantheon to take away as much of that ISK as they possibly could, because that would have provided Pantheon far too great an advantage in the game over every other group. So keep your wallet to a limited number of people, but keep it there, keep it stocked, and be ready. You need to develop programs that let members feel like they contribute to your corporation or your alliance. Mining events, PI donations, PI buyback, or buyback. These are opportunities for your members to directly contribute. And if you build the events correctly, they are opportunities for members to play together, get to know each other, and form a bond. So when I'm thinking about establishing a large group in game, those are the major things that I would worry about. Those are the things that I would focus on. And as I said, I don't have any credentials in this game, but I do spend an inordinate amount of time. One of my heroes in EVE Online is Dunk Dinkle. I will link below a video where he talks about a very, very similar topic. I may have even stolen some of his points, but it is definitely worth a watch if you've ever considered leadership in this game.